Hi and welcome to the PEPP Story Live, where every night I'm looking at tips to help you to become an outstanding speaker. That's the whole goal, that you become an outstanding speaker by just taking little tips. And at the moment this week, we're breaking down the PEPP Story approach. So let's get on with it. So let's remind ourselves a little bit. PEPP. It's a mnemonic. It's designed to help you to just remember a simple formula, bring together these 5 elements, and you're guaranteed to create an outstanding speech and become an outstanding speaker. Okay, it's not going to happen overnight. You're going to have to do a bit of work to get there. But what I can tell you is that just applying this simple approach, you will push yourself very rapidly into probably the top 10% of speakers, because to be honest, most people don't bother to put in the effort to make sure they are going to deliver a good speech. The fact that you're here listening to this means that you probably do want to create a good speech. So let's remind ourselves, PEPP. It stands for purpose, experience, passion, performance, and story. And those are the 5 elements that make up a great speech. They don't come in any particular order. I'm delivering them in an order which happens to work quite well for me, and I'm going to build one on the other. But the reality is that you need all 5 elements. You need a clear sense of purpose. You need to speak from experience. You need to draw on your passion. You need to perform, not speak. And you need to rely on story. Generate stories, use stories, because that is what makes your speech memorable. And at the end of the day, you want people to remember your message, remember your name, and take action. So tonight we're going to be looking specifically at experience and expertise. Doesn't matter, E for experience, E for expertise. It's all part of the same thing. It's that rich mine of experience that you have that you can draw on, the things that you've done. And I think a lot of people think, I haven't really had much experience. I've not really done anything. And I remember I was doing a public speaking training course once, and one of the people on the course was, I couldn't get her to just simply tell a story from her experience, one of her life experiences, that I've never done anything that's really worth talking about. And I just couldn't get her to do it. And then in the coffee break, I heard her talking to some of the other delegates, and she was talking about her holiday the previous year, a holiday where she had spent her time trekking in the Peruvian Andes. I said, I thought you said that you didn't have a story. She said, well, it was just a holiday. I said, most people have never been trekking in the Peruvian Andes, would love to go, but have never even met anyone who has done it. My goodness, that is such a fabulous story. Why didn't you tell that? Why didn't you draw on those experiences? I think it's so hard. We think our lives are humdrum and ordinary, and we forget that actually they're not. We've got particularly good lives full of incredible experiences. And when you think about it, I don't know if you're fans of soap opera at all, but it is packed full of stories of ordinary people. Well, it used to be, actually. I was watching some the other day, and I thought, it's Christmas time, and at Christmas time it gets pretty frenetic. All of a sudden, it turns into an episode of The Sopranos or The Goodfellas, where everybody's trying to kill everybody, and I just think, what's happened to good old soap operas? But there we go. In the main, soap operas are about ordinary people and ordinary lives. And so many movies are about ordinary people doing ordinary things in their ordinary lives, and sometimes those are spectacular. I do a talk about extraordinary moments, one of my keynotes, and it's about those little tiny things in life which suddenly turn everything around. Like, I went off to a conference in America, in a speakers convention in America in 1995, and it completely changed the course of my life. One meeting, one event, one day, and all of a sudden everything changed, and I became a speaker. I knew I was in the speaking industry. Suddenly I knew speakers, and I was mixing with the best speakers in the world. And I came back and with some friends set up the Professional Speaking Association. And that dramatic shift of life, those are my life experiences. I have lots of them. So I'm going to share a slide for a minute. Let's just flick the slides on and just see where we are and see if I can find them. Whoops, no, we're not oops, I need to share screen first, and bring up a slide. There we go. A slide. Experience. This is the issue. Now, think about when you're thinking about experience. What I suggest you do is get yourself a notepad. Just start to write down. What you're looking at are life experiences. What list some of the experiences you've had in your life. Think about the challenges. Have you had life and death moments? Have you overcome challenges? Have you heard of the book Feel the Fear, Do It Anyway? That was simply one woman writing a story about how she faced the fear, faced cancer, and bore it down and lived through it. Feel the Fear, Do It Anyway. It's become an outstanding book that most people have read. It has changed the lives of millions of women who've also looked at it and said, yes, okay, fine, I can face this and I can do it. You never know where a little experience of yours might just simply change somebody else's life, just transform the way they look at problems. So look at your life experiences and write them down. What are the experiences in your life that are worth noting? I was a Butlins redcoat for a season. I've got a whole bunch of stories I can tell. I can fill a couple of hours just talking about being a Butlins redcoat. Experiences that not everybody has, and everybody's fascinated. What's it all about? But also, I went to the very first Glastonbury Festival. Well, it wasn't actually the Glastonbury Festival. It was the one that inspired the Glastonbury Festival at Shepton Mallet, the Bath Festival of Blues and Progressive Rock Music. And again, it was a fabulous weekend. And, it was shortly after Woodstock, just before the Isle of Wight. It's an experience. These are all just little experiences along my life, which at the time was just a weekend away, great music festival. But I can look back through my life to all those amazing experiences, just things that happened in my life, and turn them into fabulous stories. They're all there, rich experiences. Think about your work experience. What have you learned at work that you can teach other people? See, when I go to listen to a speech, I'm looking for something. I'm looking to hear from someone who's trod the path I'm now about to tread, who's been there, found the problems, and come back to tell me what to look out for, what to watch out for. That's what I'm looking for. Someone who's walked that walk, someone who can share for me some insights into what I need to do if I'm going to tread that same path. That's it. Work experiences. What have you learned at work that you can share? What have you learned that can help other people to become better at their work? The longer you've been at work, the more experiences you have. Education and training. What have you learned? What did you talk? What did you study? What were you passionate about? What did you love doing at school? There's bound to be somebody who would like to hear about that. Maybe, just think about it. Education, training, various different courses you've done. I went on a course with a man called Stuart Wilde. You might have heard of him. He's a new age guru from the 1970s. So I did my first and only ever firewalk with Stuart Wilde. I'm not the only one who's done a firewalk, but I can make it a great story. And around about the same time, I happened to be in a personal development group, and we ended up doing for charity, a static line parachute jump. Wow, that was pretty scary, leaping out of a plane. Yeah, I've done talks at Toastmasters and all sorts of things, just describing that one weekend doing a parachute jump. There are all sorts of, the training in particular, which was quite scary. Voluntary experience. I've done lots of voluntary work. When I went to university, when I changed gender, I got very, very heavily involved in a whole range of voluntary experience. And I discovered that students who did voluntary work were the students who got jobs when they left university. The degree didn't matter. The degree said that they had actually learnt, or they had studied at a particular level and learnt certain disciplines of how to learn and apply knowledge. But voluntary experience, that said that these were people who put it into action. These were people who made things happen. These were people who weren't afraid to get out there and do something, even if they weren't getting paid for it. Voluntary experience, it's what makes people work. But yeah, I'm sure you've done something voluntary that really, really worked very, very well. Hobbies and interests now. We've all got some hobbies, some interests, something that we're fascinated about. I'm a big Pink Floyd fan. I can go on forever about them, David Bowie. So I've got a whole range, a whole underground music scene of the 1970s. That was part of, what I grew up with. But I also happen to have a friend who's passionately into the 80s and 80s music. And so I have learned to become a convert. I now have an interest in the 80s and 80s music as well. But I have other hobbies. I play a little bit of guitar, and I have other friends who do that. So think about your hobbies and your interests. What are they? How can they help? There's no way. You'll find all sorts of ways in which hobbies and interests can be brought into a speech. You might even build a whole career on speaking about your hobbies and interests. People have done that with sports. Where you live. Is there anything special where you live? I'm sure there is. Take a look around. Get to know the place you live. Place you grew up in. As you grew up, you know all the history and the background of what's there and that. Those are all stories that people like to hear about. It's all experiences you can bring in. Where have you traveled? Now, it doesn't matter if you've never even been abroad. Lots of people have never traveled around most of England. I've been to huge numbers of places, and I can talk about those, and I can bring that into speeches. I was listening to a Billy Connolly program last night talking about his life, and because Billy tends to just talk about life when he gets on stage. And if you get a chance to look at any of Billy Connolly's shows or some other programs that are coming out looking back at his life, what you'll see there is a man who knows how to take where you've been, take life just from living and turn it into a show that's made him a household name across the world. It's so easy. Look at your life experiences. And finally, your friends and family. I mean, they are such a rich source of experiences. Tonight, I was going to be settling down. This is a bit late tonight. I was going to do it much earlier, but my dog decided to eat something a little bit toxic. And so we spent the night racing around and getting him to the vet to get and the poor dog has had to have his stomach pumped basically and get stuff out. So it's been a hugely stressful night, but it's an experience. And it's one that if I need it, I can use it and I can talk about it. And so there we go. So now I want to also get you to think about another aspect of this whole area of the E from experience. We're talking about purpose, E for experience. And what I'd like you to think about, we talked about purpose last night. I just want you to think about this for a moment, because I'm going to really shift this and look at the whole thing in the structure of a talk. When you're trying to put a talk together, drawing in all those experiences from life, but also the E can remind you, and I want you, it's the letter that's different. Okay, we've got an S for story at the end, but in the middle of this, we got PEPP, and I want you to think about that E as the reminder of how to structure any good speech. And you can move slightly off this, but don't go too far away, because think about this. We've got a message. One single message. That's what we talked about yesterday, your purpose. Your one single message, your one takeaway, the one thing that everybody must remember. If they remember nothing else, this is it. One sentence. Just get your whole purpose of what you're doing into a single message and put it up. Now, drawing on your experiences, you make a point. Make a second point. Make a third point. And keep it to about 3. 3 is a really powerful number. If you look right the way back through history, you'll find that 3 keeps coming back. Aristotle talked about plays, and we're going to be talking about that much more later on when we're talking about story, and we're going to do some quite detailed work on storytelling. 3-act play. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. And I'll give you that a bit later on. But think about it. The 3s. I don't know why it's so powerful. It's easy to remember. We remember 3s much more. Whenever I move off 3, I always know I've got to use a mnemonic. I've got to do some trick to get you to remember it. Purpose, experience, passion, performance, and story. I've got 5, so I keep repeating them. And I've got a mnemonic, PEPP Story, so that you can actually see what's going on. But here's a simple structure. Message, point 1, a story. Point 2, a story. Point 3, a story. And you've got some real structure. And that will be a powerful speech. And I've seen some of the best speeches I've ever listened to structured in that way. Very simple, very easy to remember. And bear in mind that don't be too clever. You want people to remember the story. Yes, entertain them. Yes, it's going to be lots of great stuff in it, but If you want them to remember it, single message, use stories. That's pretty much it. There's no other way to make it work. So there we go. That's that's a little bit of sharing there. Now think about this in terms of expertise. You have to have earned the right to speak. And that's why we're looking at all those experiences that you've had and your expertise. What have you studied in any depth? And what I noticed when I got into speaking, people said to me, it's very, very important that you have to really, really make sure that you specialize. So when I changed, and I decided I had to change my field of expertise. So I went to university and I studied gender and research, and I focused on transgender issues. And since then, for 15 years, I've pretty much focused on transgender, diversity, sex and gender. That's it. The whole area of the issues around discrimination, harassment, victimization, gender equality. It's all in one focus. And I got more and more focused. And what we find is the more specialist you become, the narrower the field. If I'd gone on for a PhD, which I was thinking of, it would have been one question to answer. One simple area of the whole field of gender, just one area studied for 4 years, researched to create a large 75,000 word thesis. That's the whole thing. The more specialized we become, the more expert we become, the more we get paid. It's as simple as that. Focus, specialize, become the person in your very narrow field of vision. And of course, the person you're the most experienced in is your life, which is why you can always speak about your life, because you're the most expert person in the world on your life. So there we are. Have you earned the right to speak? Draw in on from your experiences. Look at everything that you've learned. Bring that all together. Look at the things you've studied, and you've got this huge mass of information. Now focus in on the things, and we're going to talk tomorrow about passion. And it's passion which helps you to focus and bring your focus down into those experiences that you most need to use within your speeches. So join me tomorrow at 5 p.m. Oh, well, I'm going to aim for 5 today. I've made it at 11:30. We'll try and get there at 5 o'clock one of these days. But don't worry, it's always on replay. So do come in and watch again. Don't forget, if you need some specific help on writing a speech, putting a speech together, getting a TED Talk together, whatever it is, I coach people. I've coached chief executives. I've coached professional speakers. I've coached students. I've coached people, from schools. I've coached people in Toastmasters. Come and talk to me. I offer a 30-minute free coaching session just to see whether you can work with me and whether what I do is what you want. But trust me, if all you got to do is to get up and deliver management reports on Zoom, that takes a challenge. It takes some skill. I can help you achieve that and become really good at it. So drop me an email, ricky@rickyarundel.com, and we'll work something out, fix up a date. Just book a half-hour slot, talk to me, and we'll see how I might be able to help you to become a better speaker. Anyway, come back. See you tomorrow. We'll be here for day 5 of my presentation. For now, thank you for being with me. I know it's pretty late, but I shall see you tomorrow. Take care.